Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. Welcome back to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. Jeff Lerner here with you, your host, as always, and thrilled to be about to bring you what we're going to bring you, which is, I'm just going to say, you know what? Let's underpromise and overdeliver. It's going to be really good. I'm joined today by Rachel Luna. She's an international speaker, best-selling author, confidence and mindset strategist, former Marine, cancer survivor, just like ridiculously inspiring human being, a petite little fireball of a human being. And I just have to say, I'm just coming in hot because we were talking right before the show and we got completely off track from what I thought we were going to be talking about and into exactly what we're supposed to be talking about. And I said, okay, scrap the whole agenda. This is where we're going with this. Hit record. Here we are. Rachel, welcome to Millionaire Secrets, and I'm excited to have you here, especially now that I know what we're actually talking about.
Hi, Jeff. I'm very excited, and I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome, and I'm just going to set up some context so we can pick back up our conversation for everyone. So this is probably going to be the most for lack of a better way to say it, this is probably going to be the most real podcast episode I've done to date. I have one scheduled in 3 days that I'm going to record with my wife. So this might end up becoming the second most real episode I ever do in the history of the podcast. I suspect the one with my wife is going to be pretty great from that standpoint. But I mean, so just for context here, if you're watching this on our YouTube show, you can see that I'm in a hotel room. I'm in a hotel room because I'm in Montana visiting my parents. I'm a total raw nerve, by the way, right now. You can look at me and see, I look like I've been crying. It's because I literally just teared up talking to Rachel when I realized, oh my gosh, what's happening here? This is where we need to go with this. I'm in Montana right now, helping my parents. I came up to support them. My mom is actually going through cancer treatment right now. And I have a lot of history with, because in the last several years, both of my wife's parents died of different types of cancer. I came back into the room, got on with Rachel, took a sip of my coffee, or actually I was just putting the sugar in my coffee. And she said, oh, I miss coffee. And I was like, what do you mean? And she started telling me her story as a cancer survivor who used an alternative treatment. And I guess now you don't drink coffee.
I actually enjoy coffee 3 to 5 times a day, rectally, through coffee enemas.
Okay. We're getting right into it. Yeah.
But I don't actually drink coffee except for once a week when I do castor oil enema treatments, which are very intense. But it's not like your typical cup of milk and sugar coffee. It's just straight up black coffee. And I savor every sip, but I miss a good old latte,
Yeah. So I'll ask you straight up, is it going to be off-putting to you if I sip my coffee, or are you just used to it?
I would love for you to enjoy it. So my diet, and I know we'll get into this in a little bit, my diet is pretty astringent, but I love to watch people eat food. I love to watch them enjoy it. And I know this is going to sound really weird, but my family, they let me smell their food. This sounds so depriving, but I get a lot of joy and satisfaction from smelling other people's food and watching them enjoy it. It just brings me so much joy to see other people have joy. So please.
That's super cool. What a heart you have for other people. So I mean, gosh, again, we literally scrapped our whole program here 5 minutes ago and threw it out the window. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing an episode about alternative cancer treatments. And man, that hits me close to home right now. But the reality is statistically, it hits the whole world close to home. I mean, like everybody knows someone who's dealt with this. You know, just so everybody, I want to make sure I get this out there because it's such a, it's a very appropriate context for you and who you are about just everything you've overcome in your past. And as I read your bio, I mean, you said I mean, your bio speaks for itself. Like your parents, am I accurate that both of your parents passed away from AIDS?
Yes, both of my parents had AIDS. That was traumatic. I suffered from 2 different eating disorders growing up. I've had a battle with alcoholism, and that was really difficult. I experienced date rape, like literally a guy put something in my drink. I woke up, he was on top of me. It was all of the things. I wanted to go to the police. I went, but they kind of gave me this look. So I felt ashamed and embarrassed. So, you know, it felt like my life has felt like one wrong turn after another, or one traumatic experience after another, enveloped in so much love, so much hope, so much faith. And that is one thing that I think I have so much of, is I have so much faith and belief that everything is for a reason. Even the worst things that have happened to us bring about incredible lessons. So I got diagnosed with breast cancer literally 3 days after the best weekend highlight moment in my career. I had hosted an event called Confidence Activated, and it was my dream. It's always been my dream to put together this big live event with hundreds of people, you know, coming from all over the world. And we did that. And then I did $100,000 of sales in the room. And I was just like, this is it. You know, like I'm doing all the things I said I wanted to do. And that was just the middle of the year. And we had already blown past the year prior, the entire year prior's revenue. You know, and we were just halfway through the year. And I just, you know, it's like the greatest moment. And all of a sudden, it was a couple days later, I'm like, oh, my neck hurts, my back. I've got this pain in my back, and I've had this pain in my back before, so I didn't think anything of it. And what would alleviate it in the past would be to like give myself gentle massage in the front and in the back, and you know, it's all connected, all the muscles. Right. And I went like this, and I felt a lump, and I had never felt anything there before. And I was like, And I said to my husband, babe, come here. Touch this. And he put his hand there, and right away he went, and you know, he pulled back. He said, what is that? I said, I don't know. I'm asking you. You feel it too? He's like, yeah. So I call my godmother, my mom, because you know, she raised me since I'm 4 years old. So I call my mom who raised me, and I'm like, Mommy, I have a lump. And she goes, go to the doctor right away. She's a nurse. She's been a nurse for 50 years. So I'm like, really? She goes, yes. So I call. It was brutal. So lesson number 1, man, woman, however you identify, if you don't think that something is right, you need to be relentless. Hear me when I say this, relentless. They will tell you that they can't get you in for weeks. That's not acceptable. You call every single day and you ask, did somebody cancel? Did somebody cancel? Because that's what happened. And also, if you are a Black woman of color, you need to fight harder than anybody else, because statistics have proven that Black women in particular die more often than non-Black women of breast cancer, because they're not taken seriously. They get dismissed. They don't get the same standard of care. So if you are a person of color, you need to advocate for yourself even harder. If you are a white person, you need to advocate for yourself. And I say this because initially when I first called, they said, it'll be weeks before we can get you in. I said, I'm going to the emergency room. So that's a little fun fact. If you go to the emergency room especially if you're on military healthcare, that puts you on the fast track because the emergency room provides a referral for you. Now, Jeff, these might sound like little kind of insignificant details, but these are the details that I didn't know. And this detail right here that I'm telling you is the difference between stage 1 and stage 3 or stage 4. So I was relentless. I go in to the emergency room and they say, it's a complex cyst. I said, are there simple cysts? And the answer is yes. There are simple cysts and there are complex cysts. So they referred me. I get the referral. I call in. Now my insurance is giving me a hard time of like whether or not, when they compare, whatever. Again, you don't take no for an answer. The first answer, if it's not the best answer that you want, it's not the right answer. And you need to go in and charge like a freaking bull in Madrid. Okay, so I finally get this appointment and the doctor looks at me and he says, you're young. You don't have any of the factors. You don't have a history. So why don't we just wait and see, and we'll have you come back in 3 months and take a look at it. Sir, you're insane if you think I'm walking out of this office with see you in 3 months. I need a mammogram. Then he says, oh, you haven't had a mammogram? I said, with all due respect, don't you have my file in front of you? I answered on your form that I have not had a mammogram. And this is, again, you have to be your best advocate, man, woman, however you identify. If it doesn't feel right, question it. They don't always know more than you. They don't always know more. Here's another fun fact. Doctors only get about 4 to 8 hours of nutritional education in medical school. They don't know everything. When a doctor tells you while you're going through chemo, eat whatever you want, just get those calories. No, don't eat whatever you want. You need to investigate what type of cancer you have and how does your cancer respond to the different types of diets out there. Did you know that brain cancer responds really well to a ketogenic diet? For brain cancer, the Gerson therapy is not the greatest thing. But for breast cancer, it is. It's a great therapy. Anyway, so I insisted on getting a mammogram, and thank God I did. And thank God I called every day to get an appointment moved up. So the mammogram came back, then they wanted to do a biopsy. They did the biopsy, comes back the next day, triple negative breast cancer. It's the most aggressive form, grade 3. Stage 1, grade 3, growing at a 97% rate. So this is really important when you're looking at the rate at which the tumor cells are multiplying. Some people have a slow cancer, which is great because that buys you time. If you have a slow moving cancer, you have more flexibility with alternative treatments. If you have a fast moving cancer, you got to come in and get it. So that led me on a path, as I was sharing with you, Jeff, prior to we began recording. God is amazing in the way that he sets things up and orchestrates things on your behalf, because several months prior to that diagnosis, a friend sent me a link to a documentary called Cancer Can Be Killed. You won't find it now. They've taken it down. And this is something that I'm noticing happens a lot. If there's something that can actually help cure cancer, eradicate cancer, if it's not something that's pharma driven, it's very hard. And by the way, I'm not against pharma. I'm not against a Tylenol, an Advil. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that it's not the only thing, and we should be looking at treatment and healing from all of the modalities. So my friend sends me this documentary. She said, I know you love documentaries. You'll like this one. I watch it with my husband. That's where I learned that there are other ways to treat cancer aside from conventional chemotherapy and radiation, which is very hard and destructive on the body. Hear me when I say I'm not against chemo and I'm not against radiation. Where I have an issue is with the amount of chemo and radiation that these hospitals and doctors are trying to put into us. It's a crime, in my opinion, and I invite you to do your research, do your own research, and don't be deceived by statistics either, because at the end of the day, even though I cited a statistic at the top of the hour, at the end of the day, when it's one human being, guess what your chance is? 50-50. It's always a 50-50. So go do your research. Don't let them tell you that you are a statistic. Okay, so I'm learning, as I'm watching this documentary, I'm learning about hyperbaric oxygen and something called IPT, insulin potentiated therapy. IPT is chemotherapy. It's the exact same chemo cocktail that they'll give you at the Mayo Clinic, but it's at a 30% dosage and it's infused with insulin. And the thought behind it is that if you attach insulin, cancer cells are attracted to that insulin. And so then as the cancer cell is looking for the insulin to feed to get that glucose, because it's enveloped with the chemo drugs, the chemo attacks the cancer dies, but all of the other neighboring healthy cells are not impacted, or not impacted as much as if you're coming in with a machine gun full of chemo. They talked about juicing and coffee enemas and all of this. So the movie ends. I look at my husband and I said, baby, if that ever happens to me, pack your bags. I'm not doing chemo. We're going to Europe, because these treatments are available in places like Mexico, Hungary, Germany, Budapest, Bali, just not here. And then I got diagnosed, and I knew that chemotherapy, the way that it's administered here in the United States, was not the right path for me at that moment.
And this, just based on what you told me before we hit record, this happened within like a week. Like, you saw the documentary and you were diagnosed like a week later?
No, it was about a month or two. It was very close.
Still, I mean, that's
yeah, it was about a month or two. Yeah.
So I mean, like, the cancer was growing in your body while you were sitting there watching the documentary.
Right.
You didn't know it. Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. Actually, cancer actually grows for about 7 to 10 years before before a tumor manifests. And actually, if you talk to somebody who has been diagnosed with cancer, they'll tell you that the 3 to 4 years leading up to their diagnosis, something happened. Something was going on, some sort of trauma, some sort of high dose stress, some sort of change in the diet. Something was happening in that time period that caused that acceleration for the tumor cells to say, like, hold on, let's get together. And by the way, one of my schools of thought, as soon as I found the lump, I didn't ask why me, because I don't think that that's a productive question. The question that I really started to ask myself was, okay, what do I need to learn from this? What are you trying to tell me? Because the tumor is not really the cancer. The tumor is a symptom that something is not right with you systemically. So you can cut a tumor out and be cancer-free, right? So technically, they cut the tumor out and I was cancer-free. But why am I still on the Gerson therapy? Why am I doing this for years? Why am I subjecting myself to this lifestyle? Because I know that cutting it out does not solve the problem. What got me sick, what caused all those tumor cells to gather up and form this little posse, was that systemically, there was a lot of toxicity in my body. Emotionally, there was a lot of repressed emotions that I was not allowing myself to deal with. So, and then environmentally, the water here, we had our water tested. There's 5 known carcinogens in this water. It's leaden with fluoride, which is horrible for the body. The things that I used to have hot pink hair, right? So the chemicals that were in my hair, and by the way, I did lose my hair, even though I did IPT, and we could talk about that if you want. But nail polish, makeup, all of it, the Windex, everything has micro doses of toxicity. And so we think like, oh, it's just Windex. It's no big deal. It's just a little bit. It's not going to hurt. But if you already have a compromised immune system, or if you're not eating well, you're not fueling your body, you're not sleeping, you're not getting rest, you're not hydrating, you're not exercising, you're pushing the pedal because you're on this path to millions, right? That was where I was. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a like, I don't want to just be a million. I want to be a multi-millionaire. Hell, get me to the billions. I'm here for it, right? So constantly pressing that gas. But are you checking have you gotten the oil changed? Are you giving it the right gas? Are you washing the car? Are you taking care of all the moving pieces? And so that's kind of the fast track to cancer.
You know, you talk about environmental and psychological and emotional and just, you know, all the factors are, I mean, it's tragically validating to the way my company, the way we approach being an entrepreneur, because really there's nothing more stressful than being an entrepreneur. And we talk about the 3 P's of excellence: physical, personal, and professional. We're talking about how to get your relationships in order, your body in alignment, and it's really validating. Like the body keeps a record.
It does.
When you do it right and when you do it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you build up. I mean, it's like everything. The law of compounding. Good things compound over time. Bad things compound over time. So for you had a lot of trauma. You didn't sign up for parents to pass away from AIDS, to be raped. I can't imagine. Even the Marines was probably a wonderful experience in a lot of ways, but it sure doesn't sound easy. And
that was very traumatic too.
Yeah, I mean, and so you didn't have. There's probably a lot of reasons, a lot of things that happened to you that were, you could reasonably argue weren't your fault.
Yeah.
And yet there you were with cancer.
Yeah.
And so anyway, keep telling the story. I mean, the story itself is so enlightening.
Yeah, but listen to that. It's nobody's fault, right? Cancer is nobody's fault. It's a no-fault disease, because I know people who have been vegan, plant-based, worked out, did everything right, quote unquote, and they still got cancer. So it does not discriminate. And this is something that I wish I would have really paid attention to, because if I really look, I could see that 7-10 years ago, God was really directing me to get my health and fitness on track, right? My clients were all Beachbody coaches, and they were all stuffing superfood shakes down my face. And I was working out and doing all those things, but I was also kind of like not taking it seriously. And so this is an opportunity where, if I really had to distill it down, it's like, are you listening? And are you paying attention to the subtle cues, the subtle nudges that God is giving you? Because you're being guided every single day, but are you listening, or are you overriding your internal compass? Like for me, it's the Holy Spirit. For you, it might be your North Star, whatever. But are you listening? Because there are clues. There's an invitation every single day to choose differently. So I'll give you an example. This morning, I woke up and I was like, I need to know what you want me to do today. Because the last couple of days, I haven't really been in peak performance, but I haven't really been intentional about being in peak performance. So I know I'm not in balance, and I know that there's something not right. Help me see what's right. So I sat down, I start reading my personal development, it's like a good habit.
Right.
And as I'm reading, I'm starting to feel anxiety build up in my body. Now, the me of, 4 years ago, I would have suppressed that emotion and I would have kept charging through with the day. The me of now, post-cancer, is like, whoa, anxiety is inflammatory to the body. So let's deal with this. I started journaling, like, why do I feel anxious? What's coming up for me? And the more I start digging, the more it's like moving all around my whole body. My throat starts to feel tight. Now, what do most people do? They will get up, they'll say, forget it, get a drink or something and try to push it away. But if you are paying attention, you're going to get an answer. And the answer that I ended up getting was that I was holding on to guilt because I didn't drink all my juices yesterday. Well, that was yesterday. Why is yesterday's guilt showing up today? Because I didn't acknowledge it yesterday. So now let's just pretend I didn't acknowledge yesterday's guilt and I didn't acknowledge today's anxiety. Well, guess what's coming in tomorrow? A sandwich of guilt, anxiety, and now probably fear tomorrow. All of these emotions are causing inflammation in the body. Your body is listening to everything. Every single cell that you have, it's responding. And if you're not choosing to become fully present and aware, you're going to be up a creek. And it's a matter of time. Listen, it's a matter of time before you or someone in your house develops cancer. And I'm not saying that to be a Debbie Downer. I'm telling you because I didn't believe it. Because I watched people around me get cancer and I always thought like, yeah, but I'm young, nobody in my family, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Nobody in my family had cancer and now I had cancer. So now somebody in my daughter's family had cancer. And by the way, I was tested for all the genes. I don't have a single hereditary gene for cancer. So what can we learn from that? It's environmental, it's situational, it's emotional, and we have the power to stop it. Now, can we talk about the good stuff though? Can we talk about the cool thing about cancer? Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. Okay, so let me lean in. So I'm just giving you all this doom and gloom, but here's the beautiful thing is that the body was designed to heal itself. And so we can heal. We can juice, which I do every single day. I juice a ridiculous amount of juices. I follow a plan called the Gerson therapy, and it is not for the faint of heart. If you're going to do the Gerson therapy, you need support. You need people helping you wash the vegetables and do the juicing and prepare the coffee enemas and making your Hippocrates soup. But what the Gerson therapy does is it helps release all the toxicity right from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, because cancer thrives in a toxic, acidic environment. So and it's not just cancer, it's like anything. If you have psoriasis, if you have autoimmune, if you have Lyme's disease, these are diseases that are caused by toxicity. And we need to get on a plan of detoxing, intermittent fasting, even fasting a couple times a month. When I first got diagnosed, I'll never forget, June 4th, 3:25 p.m., I audibly heard God speak to me. And if you've never had that experience, I recognize that fully sounds lunatic. But hey, pray for your own encounter is all I can say. So I audibly heard God say, you will be healed within 30 days. And these are the things I want you to do as acts of faith. And one of the things was fast for 30 days. And I remember when I saw that fast from 4:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And when I saw that vision, I heard it. I was like, God, you're crazy. I don't think this is for me because I don't fast, because fasting in the past would trigger my eating disorders. So I was like, there's no way. A person with eating disorders should not be fasting. But it was very clear, like, you're going to fast and you're going to be fine. And because you're going to eat at the end of the day. So I did the fasting. I prayed every morning at 4:30 a.m. I got on my hands and knees, and I wasn't begging God. There's a difference, right? Sometimes we're praying and we're writing and manifesting, whatever your modality of asking for what you want is. Mm-hmm. And I learned that begging is not the way to get your prayers answered. You get your prayers answered by praising God for doing it as if it's already done. So every morning I was praying, I was, thank you, God, that I'm healed. Thank you that every single cell in my body has healed itself. Thank you that this cancer has received my love and it's choosing to either live in peace without, gathering up any more tumors, or it's going to kill itself and understand that its job is done. Thank you, cancer, for the lessons. I began to thank the cancer. I began to show it. My dog is scratching her ear. Sorry. I began to thank cancer. And I know that in our culture, we have this big F cancer approach and mentality. Now, I lost my dear friend, Michelle Reynolds, 10 weeks ago. And Michelle was like my partner. She didn't know me from Adam or Eve. And on the night that I got diagnosed, I couldn't sleep. If you get diagnosed with cancer, I promise you this, that night you will not sleep. That night you will think of everything that can go wrong. You will envision yourself saying goodbye to your family. You will think that it will happen quickly and that it will all be over, you will not sleep that night. And you will start to look for some sort of hope. And that's what I did. I was scrolling through Instagram and I was searching the hashtag breast cancer survivor. And it's a horrible hashtag to search because everybody they look like they're dying. They don't look like they're surviving. But there was this one woman and she looked strong, a Black woman. She had boxing gloves on. And there was something in her description that said, cancer, bow down, no chemo, no radiation. And I thought, I want to do what she did. So I reached out to her. I sent her this message. I said, I know you don't know me, but I just got diagnosed. I don't want to do chemo. Do you have a podcast or a blog or something where you've already talked about your journey that I can read? Because I knew I didn't want her to do the emotional labor of reliving her story in a DM. And she said, hey, sis, that's where her first response to me was, hey, sis, here's my phone number. I'm on my way to, I don't know if she said church or I'm on my way somewhere, but I'm going to come back and I'll send you the links to the Facebook Lives that my husband and I did. And right away, she took me under her wing. She told me about the clinic that she had gone to in Mexico. And Michelle and I had this saying, one and done. We were going to be one and done with cancer. And her cancer came back. And she died very quickly. Her cancer came back in January, almost 6 months to the day she died. And when that happens, you think again, what if? But I remind myself and I remind you that are listening, if you're dealing with cancer, their story is not our story, right? We get to choose how we're going to approach this. Are we going to keep fighting? Or are we going to avoid, or are we going to reject allopathic treatment, right? So at some point, I do believe sometimes chemo is necessary, the good, hard, strong stuff, right? But while you're doing that, also get out there and do your juices and do your coffee enemas and be vegan if you don't have brain cancer. And if you have brain cancer, go keto and take the time to learn everything you can about your particular cancer, your genetic makeup. There's a test called the RGCC test, okay? This is the Greek test. And Jeff, I can send you links for all of these resources.
Great. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And you know, for anybody that wants, but the RGCC test will test your blood. And what they're looking for is to see how many circulating tumor cells are hanging out. Because remember, we talked about cancer gets cut out, but that doesn't mean that you're home free. There's still a percentage of circulating tumor cells that at any time could land on one place in the body and say, hey guys, come here. And another tumor gets formed, right? And then you get to metastatic. And by the way, if you are stage 4 metastatic, relax. It's not a death sentence. Okay? It's not a death sentence. It's just a chronic disease that now you need to work on. By the way, can I just take a step back on the fasting and something I wanted to share about being your advocate is that I got diagnosed July 2nd, stage 1. My surgery to remove the lumpectomy was July 24th. Okay, so what? About 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. In that time, the tumor had grown and I was now early stage 2. Remember, the doctor told me on July 1st, come back in 3 months. If I had come back in 3 months, that would have been stage 4 easily because of the rate that the tumor was growing. So it's important to know your genetic makeup. So the RGCC test will test how many circulating tumor cells are floating through your body per milliliter unit of blood. And you want that number to be as close to 0 as possible. Most people that have had cancer will not have a 0. They'll have, depending on the stage, they'll have 1 to thousands. Mm-hmm. But you want to get that. Once you get to 0, then you are considered cancer free. The road to zero is why we do things like Gerson therapy and hyperbaric oxygen and ozone and B17 and Laetrile. So the RGCC test will measure that, but it will also test how well your body responds to all of the natural things like mistletoe and graviola and soursop and vitamin D and high dose vitamin C and curcumin and artisamin and sea cucumber. Like, I'm just naming a bunch of things that I take, all because my body responds well to those things. It will also test to see which chemotherapies will work for you. Not all chemo is effective for every single patient. That's why you see some people go to chemo, never have a recurrence, and they're great. Other people, same disease, same stage, same treatment, don't even make it past the chemo. Why? Because the chemo was ineffective on their blood type, on their tumor, and what it did was it just fractured every other healthy cell around them. So this is why it's so important to arm yourself with information. Don't just listen to the first doctor. And by the way, most doctors that work in like the Mayo Clinic or MD Anderson, and by the way, I got treated at MD Anderson in Jacksonville, and they've been fantastic. I can only speak praise for them. Sorry, my dog wanted to get out. But they're not educated in combining natural practice with conventional. So you're going to have a hard time. They also run the risk of losing their license if they tell you that they support you trying this natural thing. So legally, they're bound. Some of them want to, and legally they can't. They could get fired for telling you to go try something. So in all that to say, it's like there's so much information out there. Go do your research. Go get educated and recognize that cancer is manageable. Cancer can be cured, cancer can be healed, and you can live a very, very long, healthy, thriving life with cancer. And I want to stress that part, especially if you're listening to this and you have cancer and you're stage 1, 2, 3, 4, wherever you're at, and you're listening to people who are, for lack of a better term, ignorant. They don't know. They're fear-driven. Their story is not your story. I'm in a Facebook group for support for triple negative. And my heart goes out to them because there's so much fear. But perfect love casts out fear. And if you start to love the journey, not to say that it's not hard, and don't even think for a second that I don't cry my eyes out at least once a week, because I do. Because it's emotional and it's scary. But if you could actually start to love the now moment, right? Because, yeah, you could have cancer, but you could also get hit by a bus. There was a huge lightning storm the other day. I thought, man, somebody could get hit by lightning. So why are we so caught up in how we're going to die? What if we just figured out how we're going to live today and how we're going to make today the best day? Like, what's your personal best for today? I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Well, you have a lot to say on this subject. It's great. And I mean, it's funny. I know I feel like I know a lot about cancer because I've been exposed to so much of it, in the last 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. Both of my wife's parents passed away from it. One was pancreatic, one was lung. Her mom, who had pancreatic, lived with us for the better part of her last year of life. So we were her day in, day out caretakers. Yeah. Sort of ironic. Those are the same thing. One takes, one gives, but they're the same. I don't know how that works. But anyways, we were with her every day. She went through heavy chemo. She went through experimental genetic therapy. My wife's dad had lung. He went through heavy chemo. And I'm not convinced, frankly, that either one of them actually died of cancer. I think they died of a combination of chemo and pain and opioids.
No. I'm sorry, can I just say something about that very quickly? This is so important. And this is why I think that my friend Michelle died. Wasn't the cancer, because I was listening just earlier today. Michelle, I hear you, girl. I have you, your name will always be on my mouth. I was listening to one of her last voice messages that she sent me, and it was on June 3rd, and she died on June 28th. She was so strong. Her voice sounded so strong. She was in pain. She was, in bad shape. But for her to die 25 days later, here's what happened. She had pain, which is what happens, right? So the pain comes in. She went to the hospital. They began giving her all these hard, heavy pain medications, opioids and things like that. Those medications speed up the progression of cancer. There's a lot of evidence on that. Just do a Google search and you'll see that things like morphine, things like hydrocodone, Tylenol with hydrocodone, those strong pain reducers accelerate the disease. Then she got put on morphine and they moved her to palliative care. Listen, I just want to tell you this right now. Unless you're ready to die, when they offer you palliative care, say no. Because what they will do in palliative care is that they will start pumping you with drugs so that you don't feel pain for however long you're going to hold on. But your quality of life is going to drastically decrease the minute you cross into those wings. So they put her in palliative care, and her health decreased rapidly in 2 weeks. And then that was it. It was too late. There was no reversing. So be mindful of the drugs that you're taking. I know that there's a lot of pain associated with it, but talk to someone who is a naturopath that can guide you. Coffee enemas are great to help with reducing pain. Whenever I get a migraine, I know right away, coffee enema time. Knocks it right out. And by the way, these are good, not just if you have cancer, if you're looking to just get into a detox practice. Now, for the record, I'm not a doctor. Don't take my word. Go do your due diligence. Consult with a naturopath doctor. Don't consult with the conventional doctor. They're going to tell you it's crazy. But talk to a homeopathic natural doctor. Look at their credentials, by the way. Don't just trust that they're calling themselves a doctor. Talk to some of their patients. Do your due diligence and adopt some of these practices. It's going to help you. And by the way, just a little thing on coffee enemas. If you do a coffee enema, and Jeff, I can send you a link so you can put this in the show note. You want the tube that looks like this. It looks like a little red catheter. This is my microphone cord, by the way. But this is the soft tube that's going to go in gently. It's not going to be uncomfortable or anything like that. Most enema kits come with a very thick, hard plastic, which is dangerous. That can cause bowel perforation, but a nice soft red catheter is not going to hurt you. Okay, sorry, just little tidbits.
Hey, these are the things that you either learn the hard way or you learn from someone else. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I have so many thoughts and questions, but again, that experience, and I mentioned my mom's going through chemo right now. And her cancer was really hard to pin down. I mean, what's shocking to me through now 3 experiences with cancer. I mean, my mom waited a month for the Mayo Clinic. I mean, the best, them and MD Anderson are as good as it gets, right? And it took, after a month, the Mayo Clinic basically said, we really still are unsure what type of cancer this is. They couldn't even really give her a conclusive diagnosis. It was just bizarre. But through it all, and you mentioned palliative care. 100% palliative care is what basically ultimately killed my wife's mom. I mean, we hear about all these deaths in the news from fentanyl. Fentanyl is like the scourge, right? I had fentanyl patches in my house for 6 months that were part of her pain treatment. And it's such a personal experience. I mean, me as an outside, person who just is trying to help, I can't try to control, I certainly can't control doctors, and I also can't control what the patient's experience or perspective or beliefs or choices. Who the hell am I? It's not my pain to say, oh, you shouldn't. I mean, I'm not sure fentanyl sounds like a great idea. It's so hard to know how to deal. But what I guess my experience so far has been cancer, you talked about the beautiful stuff, right? cancer has this way of forcing people to take a perspective on their own life that it's almost, the tragedy of it is almost that it took cancer to get them to look at their life in that way.
Yes.
What's really important? How have I been taking care of myself? What do I want? Like all this stuff. It's like, it shouldn't take cancer to ask those questions, you know? And that is, you know, why I'm so, I guess, so glad we're having this conversation, is like, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of cancer. You've lived the good, the bad, and the ugly of cancer. And ultimately, you know, cancer, like you talked about, if you're listening to this and you have cancer, statistically, if you're listening to this, you probably do have cancer, or you probably will. I mean, it's actually, I forget what the statistic is, but I saw something that basically, I think it was over 50% of all men die of or with cancer.
But remember, let's just forget the statistics that are out there on the market, right? Everybody has a 50-50 chance of getting cancer, period.
You're saying either you will or you won't.
Either you will or you won't.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And that's with anything, right? Like either you're going to be a millionaire or you're not. 50-50.
And the other thing I believe so strongly is that we live in a world now that is far more toxic than we have any idea. And I'll tell you what I have personally experienced on that front, and that I've had validated from so many conversations, is the impact that our environment has on our hormones, which we also know from my research that hormone disruptions can also be a causal factor in cancer.
Yeah, especially breast cancer.
I mean, when I was 29 years old, I had my endocrine function tested, and I had the free testosterone of like an 87-year-old man.
Wow.
And I was 29 years old, and I don't have any, I mean, to the extent that they even have risk factors for that sort of a thing. Like, and so I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sick. I must have a disorder. My pituitary is, damn it. Maybe I got hit in the head when I was a kid or something. But since that time, because frankly, I'm just a fairly forthright guy. I'll be like, you know, yeah, I carry a baggie of vitamins around everywhere I go, and I take them throughout the day, and I take, you know, supplemental testosterone, because otherwise I'd be like a 100-year-old man at this point. And I just have those conversations freely. I've had so many men open up to me and go, oh my gosh, I was feeling off and I got tested. I mean, literally 3 days ago, I was on a call with a guy that I'm doing a business deal with, and he shared with me, he's like 30 and he's on hormone replacement therapy, because same thing, he got tested and he was a 80-year-old man in a 28-year-old's body. And it's like, wait a minute, why is this happening?
Our food.
It's environmental. Yeah.
Our food is horrible.
And I mean, even water in a plastic bottle, right?
Don't even get me started on the water. You need a distiller. But here's the thing. If you drink distilled water, there's no nutrients in water. So
you have to add minerals back to it.
You have to add the minerals back in. So I take Lugo solution, and I take potassium compound, and I take niacin and vitamin D. Vitamin D is so important, especially for women. Most women are deficient in it, and a deficiency in vitamin D is a primary cause for breast cancer. So,
and don't even get me started on the relationship between vitamin D and COVID. I know that's not what we're talking about.
I'm here for it too.
But we don't even need to say any more. But like, I'll just say, go do your research on that. I take 5,000 IUs a day of vitamin D. I have for years. It's one of the reasons I don't worry too much about this COVID thing.
Well, I take 3,000. I'm smaller than you. I take 3,000, and I take anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 of vitamin C. Is vitamin C, vitamin D, you're set. And zinc.
I take 5 to 10 of vitamin C.
Yeah, and zinc, and you're good to go.
So,
yeah.
I mean, again, it shouldn't take cancer, and frankly, it shouldn't take hypogonadism and hypothyroidism diagnosis on my part. It just shouldn't take these things for people to get educated about this stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. If we actually knew and we're doing better and we're changing the way that our food was grown and the way that we take care of the environment and actually setting time. Imagine if part of the workday was you had to go out and walk. Like if that was part of your job, if you work out together or something, then guess what? The pharmaceutical company would suffer. We wouldn't need the thyroid medication. A lot of the diabetes medication would go away. We certainly wouldn't need as much chemo. And by the way, here's another fun fact. Your oncologist gets paid every time a patient enrolls in chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to, how do I find it really fast? So you mentioned diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed, and I have a picture, pre-diabetic, probably 7 years ago, maybe. They put me on metformin. Here we go. So, and if you're listening on podcast, go check it out on YouTube. So this guy is pre-diabetic. The guy over here, he's on metformin. He's pretty much been told he's going to become diabetic in the next few years. And instead, this guy was like, oh, crap, maybe I should take better care of myself. This guy, probably a year and a half later, doesn't take metformin, doesn't, has ridiculously low blood pressure. I got injured and I was out of town and I had to go to a doctor that I'd never been to before. And they took my blood pressure and they asked me if I was, if I had been in the military. And I said, why? And they said, because the only people we've seen that have this naturally low resting heart rate and blood pressure are people from special forces. And I was like, no, I'm just a pre-diabetic guy that decided to handle it on his own,
I have the lowest blood pressure as well. They're always like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm great.
Yeah. And it's funny, psychologically, I was literally just reading an article before this interview about it was actually a great article. In fact, we're talking about links. I'll put the link in the resources. It was an article about the difference between habits and routines. And there's a lot of psychology, and I'm guilty of this too. We talk about building habits, building better habits. But this article was basically saying like a habit is like how you back out of your garage without thinking about it, or how you wash your hands after you use the restroom. It's like, and they basically complex or long form tasks or things that require a lot of intentional effort, they're not habits, they're routines. And it's an important distinction. And it's a really good article, but one of the things it talked about in the origins of psychology is for a long time, people thought that human beings did things to pursue pleasure. Freud put this idea in our culture that it's all about the pleasure principle and that we're all, basically trying to have sex with some construct in our mind all the time, somehow weird way, right? The pleasure principle. And then, but psychology is actually adjusted. It's one of the reasons Freud has been sort of tossed out in a lot of ways, that it's actually not about pleasure, it's about pain. Most of our habits are things like, I'm cold, I should put on a coat. I'm scared, I should change a behavior, right? It's actually about the avoidance of pain. And I think to our point, people don't look at these things a lot of times until the consequence of not looking at them creates enough pain in their life. They go, okay, it's time to pay attention, right? And so I'm curious for you as a cancer survivor and as a really successful influencer and life changer and all the other things that you do that frankly don't have as much, it's not because you had cancer that you do these other awesome things. How do we get people to start looking at things that would be very inconvenient and uncomfortable before it's because they're in pain? Have you figured that one out?
you can't get people to do anything. That's the problem, right?
Fair enough, right?
So I think about, if I'm working with a client, I want the client to take the action that she keeps saying she wants to take. I'm listening to her. We come to a session. She says all the things. I give the homework. She goes out. She comes back and she says, no, she didn't do it. Well, if you're working with me, my response is, you don't get to come back to the next call. I'm still going to charge you, but you don't get to come back until you do what you said you were going to do, right? So I believe that it comes down to setting up some sort of accountability and asking them what they want, right? Some people, like my best friend, for example, my best friend has literally watched me have cancer, lose my hair. She has been on the phone with me while I've said nothing, but I've cried for 45 minutes because it sucks. It's scary. The whole thing, okay? And she has a bunch of ailments. And I say to her, why don't you go vegan for a little bit? Why don't you try? Nope. She won't do it. She will not do it. I said, best friend, and that's what we call it, best friend. You haven't been watching me? She said, I have been watching you, but I can't do it. I don't even know how you do it. And people say that to me all the time. You have so much willpower. And my response is, I have zero willpower. None. I have a high will to live and to live well. So that's what we have to ask people is, what is your will? Is your will to live and to live well and to live long? Or is your will to enjoy the moment? Because if you're just here to enjoy the moment, then go eat those cheeseburgers and eat one for me too. And, smoke and drink and abuse your body and stay up late and repress anger and hold on to unforgiveness and fight with everybody. Like, hey, go for it. We can't, Jeff. We can't. We can't help people that don't want to help themselves. All we can do is to continue to share our stories and hope that one story hits them, sucker punches them right in the gut enough to say, like, hold on, what is my will? And by the way, you can see what your will is by just taking an audit of what you've done in the last week. You can see what your will is and what you value. People say, like, I ask people, what do you value most? My family, my children, my husband. I say, okay, great. Let's take a look at your agenda. Tell me in the last 5 days what you did with your family. How much time did you spend with your family? And they look and it's like nothing. We had breakfast, 15 minutes. We had dinner. Maybe they've spent a total of 5 hours in a 5-day period with their family, like quality time. Mm-hmm. You don't value your family. You value Instagram, Netflix, Hulu, Zoom, Asana, Gmail, the gym. You value all of that before the thing you said you value most. And even, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm guilty. My doctor said to me the other day, because I've been having a hard time getting all 10 juices in and 3 enemas. Like, it's a beast. Mm-hmm. And I sent her a message. I was like, I'm struggling. I'm so freaking tired. I want to quit this. I wish that there were a different way, but this is the way that I've chosen, right? And I'm sure there is a different way, but this is what I've chosen. And she messaged me and she said, I want you to want health for yourself. And I wrote her back and I said, I do want health for myself. And I also want help. And I also want people to do for me as much as I do for them. That's what I want. And then we got into, are we choosing to be victims? Are we willing to heal the broken parts of us, right? The parts that are still fractured. And in that conversation, I discovered that it's not about people doing things for me. It's about me healing this. Do you follow the Enneagram?
I've been researching it for the last month, and it was the first I'd heard of it. I haven't gone very deep, but I'm starting to get it, and it's super cool.
It's interesting. Now, as a Christian girl, I try not to go too much with anything that's like astrological or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But it's very, very interesting, and it's very, very accurate. So I cautiously, suggest you give it a dabble. But in the Enneagram, I am equally a 2, a 7, and an 8, a helper, a challenger, and an enthusiast, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So the helper part of me is fractured, right? All I do, my whole day-to-day is helping people, right? It's what I built my whole business on. My whole platform is on helping you have a better life, feel more confident, take more action, offend whoever you need to offend, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But the 2 in me does not trust that people will help me, right? The trauma. So I say all that to say, if we want to help people, we first have to help ourselves. You got to be the first partaker of anything you're serving, right? I can't sit here and tell someone to do the Gerson therapy if I haven't done it myself. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to understand how frustrated you are when you have juiced, for an hour and the freaking juice spills, and then it was expensive because it's all organic, and you don't know when you're like, just all the things. Or when you set the enema bucket and you go to lay down and the whole freaking thing comes crashing down on you. Like, those things happen.
Yeah.
But we have to be willing to ask the people that we love and that we care about, what do you value and what is your will? And whatever you say you value, let's examine that. And whatever you say your will is, let's make sure that that's how you're living according to your will. Because, and being willing to, like you said earlier, how do you say to someone, don't do chemo or whatever? You say, I love you. What do you value? And what is your will? Oh, you have a will to live? Well, here's evidence that this may not be the right approach. Are you willing to go through this test? And let's just see if this chemo will even work for you. Are you willing to, while you're doing chemotherapy, add some fresh organic juices and some coffee enemas to do some detoxing? By the way, you don't want to do chemo and a coffee enema on the same day. It's very dangerous. But see, it's why you need a naturopath to help you. But are you willing to do some adjunctive things while you're going through chemo? Are you willing to be vegan or keto or whatever your particular cancer needs, so that while you're doing chemo, you're also rebuilding the body? Let's rebuild your immune system. And for the person that doesn't have chemo, are you willing to do what's necessary? Are you willing to make one incremental change a month, a quarter, to make sure that you don't ever get it? Because guess what? At this rate, 1 in 2 people will have cancer.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking the whole time you're talking about the beast. An ounce of prevention or a pound of cure, right? Somebody once told me, listen, Jeff, if you're going to be a business person, there's one thing you need to know about attorneys. Everybody says they're horrible and they're a pain in the butt, but the reality is they're a lot less expensive on the front end of a deal than on the back end of a deal when there's a problem.
Yep.
And I've learned how true that is. And so now I'm the guy who's in like this friendly handshake deal. And I'm like, I'm just going to have my attorney take a look. It's worth it, $500 now to avoid, to save those 50 grand later. Right. That's how this is too. Like, you don't have to, you're living the life of somebody who adopts these habits after they've had cancer. I mean, you are, that's it. But the reality is anybody could live what would feel like probably a much more moderate version of some of these things before and never get cancer, or at least improve your odds, or just feel better in general.
Feel better. Yeah. Listen, 1 green juice a day. I would try the green juices. I'm like, nasty ass green juice. You just have to find your right recipe. Get your 1 green juice a day. That will change everything that's happening in your body. An extra hour of sleep at night. That will change things for you.
Yeah.
Going, meatless Monday. One, organic change at a time.
And those little check-in things like that are so important because you talk about value, you talk about will. They are tangible commitments to yourself that you matter, that this is important. And that's been my experience of it. It is that like you say, I mean, a fast, a single day fast, does a lot of good things for the body. But for me, the best thing it does for me is it says, hey, I did a hard thing for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I do hard things all the time because I want to take great care of my family and because I want to build this great business and I have staff and I have an audience. And like when I'm fasting for a day, it's 100% for this guy.
Yeah.
And it's hard, which means I must matter.
Yeah. And also, can I just share this? I forgot to tell you, I had done that fast, remember, before my surgery.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor opens me up after surgery. She says, there was something really interesting. I have never seen that many lymphocytes around the tumor. I said, well, what does that mean? She said, it means that your body recognized that the tumor didn't belong there and it was starting to fight it. Well, fasting, if you look it up and Google and do your research, you'll see that fasting does help starve cancer. It helps your body attack and break down cancer. So the fasting was already helping in the healing process.
Yeah, man, there's so much we can talk about. And just a heads up, I literally have another interview I have to do in 4 minutes. So I'm like, so much I want to talk about. Can I ask, and we may end up just having to have you back, and let's just.
I would love that.
But one thing I want to ask about, and this will have to be the last thing. One of the things that really drew me to your platform is like your emphasis or your content around like that it's okay to offend people.
Oh, yes.
And can you just talk about that for a second? Like, how does that show up with the people that you work with? And like, why is it so damn valuable? And I personally offend people all the time. And so I kind of have my own experience, but I'd like to hear you share about it.
Yeah. Okay. So permission to offend is my deepest belief is that you will never satisfy everyone all of the time. It's actually impossible because even when you do the thing that someone has asked you to do, they're going to find fault with it. So why are we wasting so much time trying to do things to fit someone else's expectation? Why don't you just go do whatever you want to do, how you want to do it, be authentic to your truth, and whoever you offend, you offend. But it's not that you're going out there to intentionally be a jackass to people. So let's not get confused. But if for example, I'm sitting here telling you, I don't believe that chemo is right for everybody. There are people out there that get very mad and they say, you're sending people to death sentences.
Right.
Maybe I am. But so is the doctor that's telling you to get chemo. So we're both offering you the same thing in different ways, right? So for me, when I tell someone, don't be afraid to give yourself permission to offend, what I'm telling you is, check in with your identity, with your beliefs, with your values, line up with that and walk that out. Walk it out with conviction, with courage, with audacity. You will offend people. It's not if. You will offend people. But guess what? I have offended people, and those very same people that I have offended have come back and said, thank you. Thank you, because when you said that to me, it really pissed me off. I wasn't ready to hear it, but after I thought about it, I was able to see a different perspective. Now, I just very quickly, let's say we're talking about something like racism, because that's a big hot spot right now. Whenever someone says something that you find offensive, what if you just ask them about it instead of responding? Because a lot of times offense happens in one of two reasons, either from ignorance or from lack of being rooted in what we believe. I'm a Christian. You might be an atheist, whoever's listening. I'm not offended if you tell me all the reasons why me being a Christian is wrong. It's your belief. Why it doesn't offend me is because I'm so rooted in what I believe that I'm unshaken. You can believe whatever you want to believe. Now, people get offended when other Christians will get offended and will fight you because they're not anchored in. And the fact that someone is saying something different is challenging. It's messing with their identity. The foundation gets cracked. Get connected to who you are and be it, live it, offend people, and you'll be happier. I know I'm trying to look at the time. You got to go. All right, goodbye.
Get connected to who you are, be it, live it, offend away. I can't say it exactly. Yeah. I love it. That's a perfect note to end on. Rachel, thank you so much. Congratulations on everything you've achieved in business too, which we didn't even really get to
I know.
So much, but I think this is exactly the conversation that was called for. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so grateful you came on Millionaire Secrets. And like I said, I suspect we're just going to have you back.
Yeah, when my book, Permission to Offend, comes out. So
perfect. That'll be perfect.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Talk soon.
Thank you, Rachel. Take care.
Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.